Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review The Florida Project. And I heard this film getting tons and tons and tons of buzz, and luckily it was being played at the Princeton Garden Theater, and I got to see it last weekend, and boy was I engrossed in this film. This film, right off the bat, jumps you into this world that is gross and upsetting, yet so real and gritty. And this really does shine a light on a very unspoken part of our country where it's like people bring up the homeless, and then a lot of people bring up our shrinking middle class and the people that make tons and tons of money, the 1%. And then you have this film where it's people living in hotels and motels and week to week to week and trying to even scrap enough money for themselves where they're basically homeless, but like they just happen to have like a tiny apartment. And these kids growing up in this environment. And this is such a fascinating film. This was written and directed by Sean Baker, and Sean Baker does such a fantastic job of fleshing out this story and giving it great kinetic energy where this film just keeps flowing and flowing and flowing. And there's a story. I was really worried that this story wasn't going to have any purpose and it was just going to be a meandering film, but it does slowly peel back and build up to a moment and a payoff. And I'll discuss how I feel about that in a little bit. But I feel like Sean Baker had a nice hold on this film, and it moves along very well, and the pacing of this film is very well done. And the tone of this film is very in your face, very real, very brutal at moments, and very blunt right there. And I admire this film for not pulling any punches when it comes to displaying this kind of environment and what these people are dealing with, because it's really sad and that's the thing, this hits home really hard and you feel so bad for these kids and what they're going through and them trying to make the best out of it, but you just know they're in such a bad environment and it's really upsetting. And you have the cinematography done by Alexei Zabe, and it was so well done. And if you've watched any of my videos, you know I'm not a huge fan of handheld cam, and a lot of films like this would probably use handheld cam, and if it did, I couldn't tell because they did such an amazing job of using tracking shots. And there's so many sequences of like these cameras following our characters on screen, and you feel like you're right there with them, engrossed in this film, and that's how that's supposed to play out. That's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be engrossing. It's supposed to be making us feel like we're connected and in the moment with these characters, and it was so well done in this film. And there's just certain beautiful shots of, say, slow motion work and really emphasizing a point of view that we're seeing, or there's these low angle shots looking up at some of our characters with this beautiful Florida sky behind it. And it's really beautiful. And seeing that there is some beauty in this situation is really interesting thing for them to portray in the film. And getting to the writing, which was done by Sean Baker and also Chris Burgoch, sorry. And you have this story, and it's a very fascinating story of these three young kids growing up in these motels, and this young woman who's trying to raise her daughter, and you know that she's not in a good place, she's not a good mother, and trying to change that. And then you have Willem Dafoe's character who runs this motel, and he has his role, he has his moments, he has his arc, he has this fatherly figure about him that he's watching over these kids, and he's the emotional core. He's like the conscience of this film, and hopefully we share that conscience where we want to help these people out. And it's fascinating seeing them interact with each other and what they go through and the escalation and what happens. I'm just going to say, I'm not going to spoil it, the last 30 seconds of this film kind of like tore me out of this film, and it was so jarring to me. that it actually dropped my grade for this film just a little bit, and that's like the sole reason why. And it was really disappointing because I was so engrossed in this film, and I just didn't care for like the very very end. And I'm interested, if you've seen the film, let me know what you think of the ending, because it was for me very jarring and just so out of place with the rest of the film. Now, along with the characters, they're all very fleshed out. They all have personalities you get to see within these kids, these young adults, within Willem Dafoe's character, something that's there, and how they feel about the situation or the childhood innocence and this bad path that these kids might be going on, and all those things. And it's very very fascinating, it's very interesting. The dialogue feels so real and gritty and realistic, and it's what you would expect from real people. And that's the biggest thing about this film, is that they feel like real people, and that's important. And it does hit all home on raising of children and how impressionable children can be, and the influences that are on them, and us looking in on this very microscope onto this dark underbelly of a lot of our more urban city areas, and seeing how some of these people live. And it's really fascinating, and it's really sad. And the acting across the board is fantastic in this film, and I'm going to hit some highlights. Willem Dafoe, honestly, this is one of my favorite performances of him, and because it's so different, because he's never this straight, subtle performance in a film. He's always the crazy one. You have Spider-Man, he's the Green Goblin. Like Life Aquatic, he's Klaus, and really sticks out as, from a group of really strange, awkward characters, he is really strange and awkward in that film. And you just get this sense that this is very real, stripped down Willem Dafoe, and that he can play these really dramatic roles in a very powerful way. And then Brooklyn Price is a little girl, and she's amazing. She does a fantastic job in this film, feels so natural. And then Bria Vinate, and she plays the young mother, and she feels real and very realistic in this situation, and to the point where it's like you do feel for her, even though she can be quite despicable. It's like you understand that she probably doesn't know what the hell she's doing. She probably made a mistake and had this child, and is trying to do her best to figure out what the hell's to do with her. And the composer Lauren Balfe does such a great job with the music in this film. And there's some other great actual music choices, but the music in this film is very beautiful and moving, and does a fantastic job of setting up this film and setting up these scenes and elevating these scenes where the emotion needs to be. And my overall thoughts, this is a very heartfelt, real look at a dark part of our country and the lives of some people that live here. And I think it's an important film. I really suggest it. Even with the very ending, something that I didn't really connect with, or really didn't think was a good resolution to this film, I love this film, and I'm going to give The Florida Project an A.